let me thank you all for being here. And when I say you, I mean not only you here in this historic venue at Cooper Union, but all of you out there in cyberspace who are tuning in to the live stream broadcast. This is a very important event, and let me start by making clear what it is we're not doing vis-a-vis 9/11. We are not remembering the victims in an authoritarian and warlike spirit, where we try our best to revive the horror and pathos of that original moment in order to justify a prolonged military response all around the world. To give you a pretty vivid example of what I'm talking about, let me take you back to 9/14/2001, when official Washington was gathered in Washington National Cathedral, and George W. Bush gave a rousing speech that included this passage. Just 3 days removed from these events, Americans do not yet have the distance of history, but our responsibility to history is already clear: to answer these attacks and rid the world of evil. A modest goal, a modest goal. War has been waged against us by stealth and deceit and murder. This nation is peaceful, but fierce when stirred to anger. This conflict was begun on the timing and terms of others. It will end in a way and at an hour of our choosing. Okay, then they all stood up and belted out an unforgettable rendition of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. I have some verses from that anthem that I won't read to you because we're already running late, but you understand what I'm trying to convey. The mood was warlike. It was an expression of national resolve and unthinking unity. We're doing something not only different from that, but radically opposed to it. Whereas Bush cast the terrorist attacks as a crime against America, a crime against America the beautiful, America the good, America the innocent. An attack that had to be answered with endless war all around the world, an attack carried out by 19 Muslim hijackers armed with box cutters under the command of an Islamist zealot in a cave many thousands of miles away, right? A story that had already hit the airwaves the same day as the attacks themselves. We take a different view. We see 9/11 as a crime against humanity, first of all, not against America. A crime against humanity that victimized not just the 3,000 who were killed that day here in the city, and not just all those who have been dying ever since. Even to this day, people are still being diagnosed with cancer from what they inhaled that day down near Ground Zero. But a crime that also includes the millions of victims of our wars on terror all around the world. The millions killed or maimed and or displaced, the millions misdescribed by the New York Times as migrants, as if they were out looking for work. They are refugees, millions upon millions of victims, which makes it fairly reasonable to say that 9/11 was a crime against humanity. And we frankly don't believe the government's conspiracy theory of how that happened. Thank you. But let's hurry on, because that's kind of the theme of the whole 2 days. The official narrative is preposterous on its face. It is a ludicrous explanation. We don't accept it. And so we are not only memorializing the victims, but we're really honoring them in the best way possible by trying to seek justice for them by figuring out what actually happened and who really is responsible. Yeah, war had been waged against us by stealth and deceit and murder. President Bush was right about that, but at whose hands? We don't know. And we would like to know. Now, secondly, we see 9/11 not just as a crime against humanity, but as a crime against democracy. And by that I mean two things. I mean, on the one hand, that traumatic event did what such events always do in history and are meant to do, which is to exalt executive authority beyond the reach of any kind of popular control. Here was a president who had not really been elected, who was terribly unpopular. He'd become a national punchline by that fatal day, and all of a sudden he was transformed from, Bozo the Clown into Winston Churchill. You remember this? He was FDR squared. He was the greatest leader we could ever possibly imagine. And I guess that means Dick Cheney was as well, since the two were joined at the hip. So he was exalted. Suddenly his non-election was not an issue. The state engaged in a massive ongoing exercise in global surveillance, infiltration of dissident groups. They set up black sites all around the world where they tortured confessions out of people. The Patriot Act was rushed through Congress. It had already been written by 9/11. It's about yay thick. In various ways, in other words, 9/11 was a very effective crime against democracy, doing what war has always done, doing what war the framers feared would do to our system if it should ever, manage to take over in that way. But 9/11 was also a crime against democracy in another subtler way, and that has to do with the fact that a majority of Americans simply don't believe the official account of 9/11. Now, in order to elaborate on this point, let me take you back to another crucial date that we should all be bearing in mind as we consider this date, or tomorrow's date, and that's the day that John F. Kennedy was assassinated, November 22nd, 1963. That was another crime against democracy. That was a violent coup d'etat that was carried out by unknown actors, plural, and that was explained immediately and very tidily, and again, preposterously, as the work of a lone gunman, okay? Now, it wasn't long, really, before that official explanation began to unravel. It started to unravel by the mid to late 60s. And as it unraveled, the CIA came up with a brilliant idea for dealing with the critics of the Warren Commission report. And that idea was to smear all critics of the report, to smear anyone who was digging into the facts of that assassination as conspiracy theorists. Okay? There's a book I strongly recommend, Conspiracy Theory in America by Lance DeHaven Smith. The CIA memo laying out this strategy is actually at the back of the book, so this is not itself a conspiracy theory. This is a fact. And from 1967 on, therefore, the phrase conspiracy theory popped up increasingly throughout U.S. journalistic discourse, and to this day, we hear it endlessly, over and over again, to stigmatize and ridicule anyone who dares to raise a question about official narratives, however ludicrous. Now, we're hearing this a lot lately. A lot of eye-rolling and snickering about conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists. We read that, can you believe this? 61% of the American people think that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't act alone. Can you believe this? Can you believe that so many people subscribe to the view that somehow 9/11 was the work of American actors? Unbelievable, isn't it? This is what the corporate media, and much of the left press too, let me say, continues to say to this day about both these crimes against democracy. And what this amounts to is a suggestion, a strong suggestion, that the American people are idiots, nuts, that they could believe these things. Why don't they simply believe what the state tells them is the truth? right? Why don't they simply believe what the government tells us happened? All right, that's not the American way, as I understand it. That's an authoritarian position. We don't believe something because the government tells us it's true. Is that not right? Okay. So, I have to hurry to an end. Les is flashing a sign that says 0 on it. So let me simply say that I agree with Les, not about the need for me to get off the stage right now. I agree with him that there are signs that are very, very encouraging. If Pete Carroll, the coach of the Seattle Seahawks, is now a 9/11 truther, we're obviously doing something right, right? They're not going to stand for that anthem, right? And we're not going to stand up and belt out the battle hymn of the Republic every time somebody says 9/11. We're going to take a more thoughtful approach. We're going to use our minds. We're going to be genuinely patriotic and raise serious, critical questions about the evidence surrounding 9/11. That's what we're here to do this weekend. And I can tell you as a professor that my own students are no longer intimidated by the conspiracy theory meme. It isn't working anymore. These official stories are unraveling because the internet is out there, right? And the sooner they unravel, the better.